Hello, all my lovely students. How's it going? Is everything going well? Well, are you ready for another English video focused on practical and commonly used English idioms? Of course you are, so let's get started. What are we going to do in today's video? We're going to be talking about some very practical time English idioms that you can use the next time you want to talk about the topic of time. So let's get started. The first one is time flies. Time flies. Time flies. But what does it mean? When we say time flies, it means time passes very quickly. Time passes fast. An example of this phrase. Time flies when you're having fun. Time flies when you're having fun, which means time passes very fast and quickly when you're having fun. The second English idiom with the word time that you gotta know is against the clock. Against the clock. Against the clock. When you do something against the clock, you try to do it very fast and quickly. You're in a hurry to do it or get it done because you got to finish it before a certain deadline. You're forcing yourself to make sure that you're doing it or getting it done before a deadline. So to do something against the clock means to do something very fast and quickly because you got a deadline that you got to meet. And there's something that has to be done before a certain deadline. An example. We're working against the clock to complete the project on time. We're working against the clock to complete the project on time, which means we're doing our best to complete the project as soon as possible. We're putting ourselves under pressure to do all that we can to make sure that we're finishing the project as quickly as we can, especially in a timely manner. Now we get to the third English idiom, which is to beat the clock. To beat the clock. To beat the clock. What does it mean when we say you beat the clock? To beat the clock means you do your best. You work so hard to finish something before a certain deadline. So to beat the clock has a somewhat similar meaning to do something against the clock. An example of this phrase. He managed to beat the clock and submit his assignment early. He managed to beat the clock and submit his assignment early, which means he successfully completed his assignment and he submitted it before the deadline. He did his best to finish the assignment as quickly as he could. He did the assignment in a hurry because there was a certain deadline that he had to meet. The next English idiom about the word time is in the blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye. When you do something in the blink of an eye, you do it very fast and quickly. You do it soon. You do it faster than people think or faster than people can believe. So, to do something in the blink of an eye. An example. Oh, the summer was over in the blink of an eye. The summer was over in the blink of an eye, which means the summer was over fast and quickly. Now we get to the fifth English idiom to talk about time, which is at the 11th hour. At the 11th hour. At the 11th hour means at the very last minute, at the very last moment. So when you do something at the 11th hour, you do it at the very last moment or at the very last minute. An example of this phrase. I washed the car at the 11th hour before the party. I washed the car at the 11th hour before the party, which means I washed the car at the very last minute, at the very last moment before going to the party. Now we're getting to the sixth English phrase used to discuss the topic of time, which is to kill time. To kill time. What does it mean when someone kills time? Well, to kill time means to do something to keep yourself busy while waiting for something. Have you ever been in a situation in which you had to wait for something and as you were waiting for it, you didn't really know what to do? Well, in that situation, when you kill time, you try to keep yourself busy, with something. You try to be busy doing something in order to wait for something or as you wait for something. An example of this phrase. I played a game on my phone to kill time before my flight. I played a game on my phone to kill time before my flight. This is what I do all the time. Whenever I'm supposed to fly somewhere and I have to go to the airport, and usually there's a certain amount of time that I have to, be at the airport, waiting for the flight, waiting to board the plane, then I'm left with no choice but to kill time by doing things like playing games on my phone, watching videos on YouTube. But normally I don't play games, to kill my time. What I do is make videos, make English teaching videos on YouTube and also on Instagram. I make, YouTube stories, I make YouTube videos, YouTube shorts in order to kill time. That way I'm killing two birds with one stone. On the one hand, keeping myself busy with something that enables me to reduce the negativity, the unpleasant feeling of having to wait for something for long hours. And on the other hand, teaching you guys new words. I'm teaching you guys English, which enables me to, make a positive contribution to the community of language learners. So that's the meaning of kill time. Now we get to the 7th English idiom used to discuss the topic of time, which is to hold your horses. To hold your horses. When we ask someone to hold their horses, we ask them to wait and be patient. We ask them to behave patiently and wait for something to happen. Wait for something that they gotta wait for in order to happen. When we ask someone to hold their horses, what we ask them to do is we want them to stay patient, and also we want them to wait for something patiently. We want them to behave patiently, and we ask them to wait for whatever it is that they gotta wait for in order for that thing to happen. An example of this phrase: hold your horses, the movie hasn't started yet. Hold your horses, the movie hasn't started yet, which means try to be patient, wait a little bit, the movie hasn't started yet. Now we're getting to the 8th English idiom used to discuss the topic of time, which is an interesting one. This is one of those idioms that you may not have heard before, or you may have heard nothing of before, which is a watched pot never boils. A watched pot never boils. Let me just repeat. A watched pot never boils. But what does it mean when we say a watched pot never boils? Well, a watched pot never boils refers to the idea that when you focus too much on the process of waiting for something, it seems to take longer than expected. It seems to take longer than, you think it should take in order for that thing to happen. So a watched pot never boils means when you focus so much of your attention on the process of waiting for something that you have to wait for, it seems to take longer. It seems to take much longer than usual, much longer than expected. It seems to take, a very long period of time in an annoying way. An example of this phrase: stop checking your phone every minute. A watched pot never boils. Stop checking your phone every minute. A watched pot never boils. Which means rather than check your mobile phone every single minute and second to see if he has texted you on Instagram or WhatsApp, keep yourself busy with something else, because when you focus too much time and too much attention on the process of waiting for something, waiting for, let's say, someone to text you, it seems to take longer than usual, longer than expected, in an annoying and, nerve-wracking way. So stop doing that. Rather than check your phone every minute, just keep yourself busy with something else. All right, now we should proceed to the next English idiom that you guys can use to discuss the topic of time, which is once in a blue moon. Once in a blue moon. Once in a blue moon. When we say something happens once in a blue moon, what we mean is something happens very rarely. Something does not happen all the time or on a regular basis or on an ongoing basis. It just happens very rarely. An example: I eat fast food only once in a blue moon. I eat fast food only once in a blue moon, which means I eat fast food rarely. I don't eat fast food like all the time. I eat fast food very rarely. The next time English idiom is day in, day out. Day in, day out. When we say something happens day in or day out, it means something happens all the time. Something happens continuously. Something happens, on an ongoing basis. An example: he goes to the gym day in and day out. He goes to the gym day in and day out, which means he goes to the gym continuously and consistently. He goes to the gym on an ongoing basis. Now we're getting to the next English idiom of today's video that if you learn, you can talk a lot better when it comes to the topic of time. What do you think it is? Can you guess? Of course you can't. It's only me that can tell you what it is, which is for the time being. For the time being. For the time being. But what does for the time being means? For the time being means now, or temporarily, or for now, or temporarily. An example. I'm staying in an apartment for the time being until I find a house. I'm staying in an apartment for the time being until I find a house, which means I'm staying in an apartment temporarily or right now before I find a house or until I can find a house. I know you're waiting impatiently for the next English idiom to talk about the topic of time, but no worries. I'm all here. I'll tell you what it is. It is all in good time. All in good time. All in good time. But what does it mean? What does all in good time mean? When we say something happens all in good time, it means something, will eventually happen one day. It may happen at some time in the future. You may have to wait for it, but it will eventually happen. So be patient. Wait patiently for whatever it is that you want to happen, because sooner or later it will happen. So, all in good time. Something happens all in good time. An example. Don't rush. Everything will fall into place all in good time. Don't rush. Everything will fall into place all in good time. Don't rush. Everything will fall into place all in good time. Which means don't rush. Don't be in a hurry. Be patient. Everything will happen. Everything will get better. You will, get the hang of things soon in the future. And everything will fall into place. Everything will start happening, in the right way. Everything will be in the right direction. Everything, will start happening in the way, it should soon in the future, at some point in the future. But the key is you got to be patient. All right, the next one is in no time. In no time. In no time. When we say something happens in no time, it means something happens very quickly. Something happens, pretty fast, rapidly. Something happens, during a very short period of time. An example of this phrase. The train will be here in no time. The train will be here in no time, which means the train will be here quickly, rapidly, very soon. I know you're impatiently waiting for the next idiom, and you're just wondering what it is. So I can say it is the good old days. The good old days. The good old days. Can anyone guess the meaning of this idiom? The good old days. What does it exactly mean? The good old days refers to the idea that everything was much better in the past than, it is right now in the present or today. So the good old days refers to a period of the past when everything was much better than, it is right now in the present. I miss the good old days when we had no responsibilities. I miss the good old days when we had no responsibilities, which means I really miss the past when everything was much better than the present, especially when we had no responsibilities. What about you? Is there anything that you've missed about the good old days, or do you want the good old days to return? I want you to leave your answer down below in the comment section. All right, now it's time for the 17th time idiom of today's video that you gotta learn to be able to speak better at a more advanced level when it comes to the topic of time, which is to be ahead of your time. To be ahead of your time. When we say someone or something is ahead of their time, what we mean is they're very advanced. They're much better than other people or things because they're far more advanced. Or other people may not be able to understand them, may not be able to make heads or tails of them because they're far more advanced than, the period of time in which they are. They're far more advanced than their present or than their current time. An example of this phrase: his ideas were ahead of his time and now they're being appreciated. His ideas were ahead of his time and now they're being appreciated, which means his ideas were far more advanced than, his time, than, the period of time in which he was, and now people are getting to understand what his ideas were like, and now people are getting to appreciate his ideas. Alright, now we get to the next English idiom that will be of great benefit to you, especially if you're someone who delays or postpones things, which is to make up for lost time. To make up for lost time. To make up for lost time. To make up for lost time means to do something quickly and rapidly to compensate for all the delays. Let's say, there was something that you were supposed to do, but you postponed it or you delayed it, and you should have done it much earlier, but, now you got no time to do it, so you start doing it quickly and rapidly in order to make sure that you get it done or you do it completely before a certain time in the future. So you try to make up for lost time, which means you try to do something quickly and rapidly to compensate for all the past delays. An example of this phrase: after missing a week of class, she studied harder to make up for lost time. After missing a week of class, she studied harder to make up for lost time, which means after, missing a week of class, she decided to study harder to compensate for all the past delays. And now we're getting to the 20th, in other words, the final idiom of today's video that you gotta learn to speak at a more advanced level when it comes to the topic of time, which is the time is ripe. The time is ripe. Once again, the time is ripe. But what does the time is ripe mean? The time is ripe means the perfect moment, the perfect time for something has arrived. When we say the time is ripe to do something, it means it is the perfect, the ideal moment or time to do something. So the time is ripe emphasizes the idea that it is the perfect or the ideal time to do something. An example of this phrase: the time is ripe to invest in real estate. The time is ripe to invest in real estate, which means it is the perfect or the ideal time to invest in real estate. And that's about all, guys. Thank you for watching today's video. Let's review all these very practical and commonly used English idioms once again together. What do you think? Of course, I know you want me to review them, so let's just do so together. Time flies. Time flies. Against the clock. Against the clock. Beat the clock. Beat the clock. In the blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye. At the 11th hour. At the 11th hour. Kill time. Kill time. Hold your horses. Hold your horses. A watched pot never boils. A watched pot never boils. Once in a blue moon. Once in a blue moon. Day in, day out. Day in, day out. For the time being. For the time being. All in good time. All in good time. In no time. In no time. The good old days. The good old days. Ahead of your time. Ahead of your time. Make up for lost time. Make up for lost time. The time is ripe. The time is ripe. And that's about all, guys. Thank you for watching today's video. Please like the video just right now. Do it right now in support of this channel. Thank you for doing so. And subscribe if you haven't done so already. I'll be back soon with another video. In today's video, we're going to be reviewing some very practical and must-know English idioms that can take your English to the next level and enable you to speak like native speakers. Are you ready? Of course you are. So let's get started. The first English idiom is to have several irons in the fire. To have several irons in the fire. But what does it mean when we say someone has several irons in the fire? To have several irons in the fire means you're involved in different activities or in different projects at the same time. You have multiple projects to do, or you're involved in multiple activities and several projects at the same time. You're busy doing several things at the same time. An example of this beautiful idiom: Sarah isn't worried about losing her job because she has several irons in the fire, including a freelance business and a side hustle. Sarah isn't worried about losing her job because she has several irons in the fire, including a freelance business and a side hustle, which means she's not worried about losing her job because she's involved in multiple projects. She's got multiple businesses and she's busy doing several things. So if she loses her job, she's not going to make a big loss. She has other sources of income. She's still making money. So she has several irons in the fire. Now we get to the second English idiom that you really need to know and learn in order to speak at a more advanced level, which is to be a shadow of your former self. To be a shadow of your former self. But what does it mean when we say someone is a shadow of their former self? Well, to be a shadow of your former self means to be much weaker than before, to be less confident and successful than you were in the past. So to be a shadow of your former self emphasizes the idea that you're not as strong, confident, and successful as you used to be in the past. An example of this phrase: ever since his injury, Tom is a shadow of his former self, struggling to perform like he used to. Ever since his injury, Tom has been a shadow of his former self, struggling to perform like he used to. Ever since his injury, Tom has been a shadow of his former self, struggling to perform like he used to. Which means since he got injured, let's say in an accident, he's been a shadow of his former self. He's not been as successful, strong, and let's say confident as he used to be. And he's struggling to perform like he used to, which means he's not performing as well, successfully, and confidently as he used to in the past. What about you? Do you think you're a shadow of your former self? What has made you feel so? I want you to comment the answer down below. Now we get to the next idiom, which is to put out feelers. Put out feelers. To put out feelers. But what does it mean when we say you put out feelers? Well, to put out feelers means to test a situation before you make an important decision. You try to discover the opinions of people about something. You try to discover the feelings of people about something before doing it. In other words, you try to test a situation before making an important decision. An example of this phrase: before quitting your job, Emily put out feelers to see if any other companies were hiring her. Before quitting your job, Emily put out feelers to see if any other companies were hiring her, which means before quitting her job, she decided to test the situation. She decided to, see which way the wind is blowing. She decided to consider the situation and see if there were other companies or people hiring her in order to get another job immediately after quitting the previous one. So before quitting her job, Emily put out feelers to see if any other companies were hiring her. Now we get to the next English idiom, which I strongly believe that you got to get into the habit of using, because it's one of those beautiful idioms that can show that you're an advanced speaker of English, or you can speak English as native speakers do, which is to push back the frontiers. To push back the frontiers. But what does it mean when we say someone pushes back the frontiers? To push back the frontiers means to expand the limits of knowledge, science, and progress. So to push back the frontiers means to discover new things and expand the limits of knowledge, science, and progress. One example of this idiom to clear up the confusion and help you gain a better understanding of how you can use this idiom. Scientists are pushing back the frontiers of medicine with groundbreaking cancer treatments. Scientists are pushing back the frontiers of medicine with groundbreaking cancer treatments, which means scientists are expanding the limits of medicine. Scientists are discovering new things, making new discoveries. How? By working on groundbreaking cancer treatments with groundbreaking cancer treatments. Has there been any invention in history, guys, that you believe has been a perfect example of pushing back the frontiers? What is that invention, and why do you think that invention has changed our lives for the better and has shaken the foundations of our lives? And How would our lives look if there were no such an invention? I want you to comment the answers down below. The next English idiom that I'm going to bring to your attention is you can make bricks without straw. You can make bricks without straw. What does it mean when we say you can make bricks without a straw? Well, when we say someone can make bricks without a straw, it means someone is not able to complete a project, do something, complete a task, or get something done without the necessary materials or resources provided for them. Which means if you want someone to do something, complete a task or a project, what you need to do is provide them with whatever they need, any materials or resources they need in order to be able to do so. That's the meaning of you can make bricks without straw. An example of this phrase: our manager expects us to complete the project quickly, but you can make bricks without straw. We need more staff and budget. Our manager expects us to complete the project quickly, but you can make bricks without straw. We need more staff and budget, which means our manager expects us to complete the project quickly in the blink of an eye, but the funny irony is, the funny controversy and contrast here is that he does not provide us with the materials and resources we need to be able to do so in order to complete the project as quickly as we can. We need more budget and staff. The next English phrase that you need to learn and use to be able to speak a better English is there is money to be made in something. There is money to be made in something. This English idiom is one way of saying that something is very money-making, something is profitable, something, is lucrative. When you do something, you can make a lot of money. So when we say there's money to be made in something, it means doing something is very profitable. There's a lot of profit in something, or doing something enables you to make a lot of money. Doing something is lucrative and money-making. An example of this phrase: with the rise of online courses, there is definitely money to be made in the e-learning industry. With the rise of online courses, there is definitely money to be made in the e-learning industry, which means considering the rising market for online courses, you can make a lot of money. You can make a lot of profit by teaching people online, by providing online courses in the industry of online learning or internet learning. Now let me ask you a question with this idiom. Is there anything, guys, that you believe there is money to be made in? What is it, and why do you believe there is money to be made in it? I want you to comment the answers down below. And now we get to the final English idiom of today's video that you can use in order to surprise your native friends and impress them with your advanced English, which is to mortgage someone's future. To mortgage someone's future. But what does it mean when you say you're trying to mortgage someone's future? To mortgage someone's future means to consider short-term and temporary benefits at the expense or cost of sacrificing your future or your future stability. In other words, when you mortgage your future, you take out a lot of loans in the present in order to buy something and benefit from it financially, but at the same time you're ruining your future by having to clear the debt, by having to pay off the loan, and by having to work hard and live, a life of stress and tensions with the purpose of clearing your debts or paying off your loan, which is an equivalent of ruining your future and, disturbing your future stability. An example of this phrase: by borrowing so much money, the company is mortgaging its future and may struggle with debt later. And that's about all, guys. These were the lovely idioms of today's video that you really need to learn, which is why I brought them to your attention. Let's review these phrases once again together. Have several irons in the fire. Have several irons in the fire. Be a shadow of your former self. Be a shadow of your former self. Put out feelers. Put out feelers. Push back the frontiers. Push back the frontiers. You can make bricks without straw. You can make bricks without straw. There is money to be made in something. There is money to be made in something. Mortgage someone's future. Mortgage someone's future. And that's about all, guys. Thank you for watching today's video. Make sure you like this video in support of this channel. Special thanks to those who do so. And subscribe if you haven't done so already. I'll be back soon. In today's video, I'm going to be focusing your attention on secret words used by native speakers that you don't know, that if you use, you can speak English in the exact same way as native speakers do. Are you ready to learn these words? Of course you are, which is why you're watching this video. So let's get started. The first phrase used by native speakers that you may not know or you may have never used is hit me up. Hit me up. Hit me up. What does hit me up mean? Well, to hit someone up means to call someone, to contact someone, to message someone. So it's a casual way of asking someone to call you, contact you, or message you. Hit me up. An example of this phrase. I'm very busy now. Hit me up later. I'm very busy now. Hit me up later, which means I'm going to text you, I'm going to call you, I'm going to message you later. I'm very busy now. Now we get to the next word used by native speakers that you may not know or you may have never seen, which is low-key. Low-key, the adverb low-key. What is the meaning of low-key? Low-key means up to some extent or kinda. So we can use low-key instead of kinda to say that, something is happening up to a certain extent, usually up to a little extent, up to some extent. An example of this phrase. Low-key, this song is popular. Low-key, this song is popular, which means this song is kind of popular. This song is kind of famous. On the other hand, the exact opposite of low-key is high-key. High-key, which means to a great extent. So when someone says something is true, high-key, it means something is true to a great extent or something is really true. An example of this word. High-key, this song is popular. High-key, this song is popular, which means to a great extent, this song is popular. This song is very popular to a great extent. Now we get to the next word used by native speakers when they want to say that they're very interested in doing something or they really want to do something, they really like to do something, which is I'm down. I'm down. So when a native speaker says I'm down, it means they really want to do something, they really like something, or they're very interested in doing something. An example of this phrase. Do you want to go on that trip with them? Yeah, I'm down. Do you want to go on that trip with them? Yeah, I'm down. Which means, yes, definitely, I really want to go on that trip with them. I really like to go on a trip. I really like to go on that trip with them. I really want to go on that trip with them. The next word used by native speakers that I highly recommend that you learn to be able to understand native English better is no biggie. No biggie. No biggie. No biggie means no problem. No problem. No biggie means no problem. An example of this word. No biggie. Don't worry about it. No biggie. Don't worry about it. Which means no problem, don't worry about it. There's no problem, no worries, don't worry about it. Now we're proceeding to the next English phrase used by native speakers, which is out of the blue. Out of the blue. Out of the blue, which means unexpectedly or suddenly. An example, she called me out of the blue. She called me out of the blue, which means she called me unexpectedly. She called me suddenly. The next English phrase that I'm going to be focusing your attention on will catch you by surprise because I bet you've never seen or used this phrase before, which is let's bounce. Let's bounce. But what is the meaning of let's bounce? Let's bounce means let's leave. Let's leave the place. Let's leave. Let's bounce. An example, the party is over and it's getting late. Let's bounce. The party is over and it's getting late. Let's bounce, which means the party is over and it's getting late. Let's leave. Now proceeding to the next English phrase used by a native speaker that will blow your mind, which is it's a vibe. It's a vibe. It's a vibe. But what does it's a vibe mean? Well, it's a vibe means it's a great atmosphere. It is the right atmosphere. It feels right. It feels so good. It's a wonderful atmosphere. So another way of saying it's a wonderful atmosphere or, it's very enjoyable or it's nice is it's a vibe. It is a vibe. An example of this phrase. The cafe is a vibe. The cafe is a vibe. The cafe is a vibe, which means the atmosphere of the cafe is very good, is very pleasant. Now we're getting to the next English phrase used by native speakers, which is for real. For real. It is used in the form of a question. We usually use it as a question in response to something shocking or surprising that we hear, that we cannot believe. For real. For real, which means really. Are you kidding me? Are you serious? Do you really mean it? Are you sure? Is this real? An example. I bought a new car. Oh, for real. I bought a new car. Oh, for real. Which means, are you serious? Are you really saying that? And now we get to the final phrase of today's video used by native speakers that if you can use, you have learned the secret to speaking English in the exact same way as native speakers do, which is by using the phrase take a rain check. Take a rain check, which means let's reschedule. Let's reschedule. So to take a rain check means to reschedule, to manage things again, to schedule things again. An example. I can't come today. Can I take a rain check? I can't come today. Can I take a rain check? Which means I can't come today. Can I reschedule? It's not possible for me to come today. Can I manage it again? Can I schedule things again? And that's about it, guys. These were the phrases used by native speakers. I'm not saying these are the only phrases used by native speakers. Of course, there are thousands of phrases used by native speakers that you gotta learn, which we will be reviewing in other videos as well. So let's review the phrases of today's video. Hit me up. Hit me up. Low key. Low key. High key. High key. I'm down. I'm down. No biggie. No biggie. Out of the blue. Out of the blue. Let's bounce. Let's bounce. It's a vibe. It's a vibe. For real. For real. Take a rain check. Take a rain check. And that's about all, guys. Thank you for watching today's video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and like this video if you enjoyed watching it. I'll be back soon.